Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast and welcome to Bali in this cool bungalow that I'm staying in at the moment. I thought it would be remiss of me not to talk about what I've been up to since I've got over here and what I've been thinking about and why exactly I am here to start with. You may notice that I'm a little bit redder than I would normally be. Yes, I did sit out in the sun a little bit too long this afternoon. Funnily enough, I was actually going to, feeling all smug about myself and was going to create some content or just put it on my story about how you don't ever need sunglasses and two, how you don't need sun cream. Obviously, there is risks involved. So I would always recommend you wear sun cream if you're out in it a lot. However, my thesis, and I've actually backed this up with research. If you think about evolutionarily, we didn't have sun cream and we managed to survive. So, and it's a big part of how we receive vitamin D. And you ever notice people talk about having a base tan before they go away on holiday, go down to the sunbeds, etc. And essentially, what it's doing is just readying your skin, getting it used to that extra exposure, I guess. And so, to be fair, I very rarely use sun cream unless I'm like out on a boat all day or something like that. So this afternoon was the first time I've really been out in the sun, and my approach was I'm going to do 20 minutes aside, like some sort of beef joint. So I did 20 minutes on the front, 20 minutes on the back, and then fully enough, I was talking to AI afterwards. I was like, "What do you think to this? Like, I feel like it's pretty sensible." And it was like, "This is Claude, by the way. Uh, like, your science is sound. However, 20 minutes straight away is probably a bit too much." And I'm thinking, "Nah, it's fine." And then all of a sudden, I blew up much redder. So yeah. So next time, I will maybe start with 10 minutes aside. But today was my first day down at Wanderlust CrossFit, which is this huge gym complex that has like it's absolutely massive. They do high rocks, they do CrossFit, and they have like a recovery area of ice baths and stuff. And I wasn't sure what to expect because asking some people that I've met and spoken to around here, a lot of them go to some of the newer gyms. There's lots popped up. Wanderlust have been around for ages. That's why they got such a good reputation. And I think the main reason is some of the equipment is a little bit old, but there's no air conditioning now. In all the new places, they do have air conditioning, and it's a huge difference. So I got there this morning. It was the 9 o'clock class, so it's starting to heat up at that point. You are inside, and it's just fans really, and went straight into it. And bear in mind, I'm still jet lagged. Um, haven't trained since like 4 or 5 days ago, something like that. And normally, when we train at Industry 13, the CrossFit gym that I train at now at home, we'll do like a strength session at the start, or like Olympic lifts, something like that, and then we'll finish with a WOD, which will be between I don't know, like 8 to 15 minutes, sometimes maybe 20 minutes. Um, Unless you do a specific class, which is like a 40-minute WOD. Anyway, so this one today was a 40-minute WOD. And I always go out too hot. I always go out too hot. And I got on the rower and I'm just absolutely, well, I wasn't like sending it. I felt good. I felt strong. So I was like pulling it and I was doing 2000 calories a minute, which is pretty fast. And like, cause like it was like jumping up, like the thing moving. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah. And I think I was just showing off a little bit, but I was just enjoying training. And then we went into some of the other bits, and then all of a sudden, I say all of a sudden, about 30 minutes in, I was really cooked. So ended up just having to take a little sit down. My partner's still carrying on. And I'm thinking, right, I'll be up in a minute. And then like 60 seconds, and I went to stand up, and I just went really dizzy, sat back down, and I literally was on the floor, and like with my legs raised like this, trying to get the blood flow back into like my organs. Uh, so yeah, it was a little bit disconcerting, but it's funny because it I had like a bit of a flashback at the time, and strangely enough, that was in Indonesia. I was on the Gili Islands 9 years ago, and I was doing a lot of running at the time. And I'd gone out for a morning run, but I'd slept in that day. I ended up getting a little bit up a little bit later, so I'm out running, and exactly what I just described happened then. I started going really dizzy, went a little bit funny, hands started going a little bit tingly, and I'm like, so I like stagger into this like doctor's office thing, and it's proper rough and ready. Like the Gili Islands, there's no cars there. It's just horse and cart. It's like proper, going back a few years in sort of civilizational perspective, but um, they still got electricity. And I went in, and I explained what had happened. They put a blood pressure thing on me. And like, and they were both like panicking. You're like, high blood pressure, high blood pressure. And of course, I hear that, and then I'm like, fucking panicking. And they were like, "You need to take this medication. You've got hypertension. It's really serious, etc." And I'm like, but like proper panicking because I don't know anything about I don't know what I know now about blood pressure and stuff. And you might be wondering, what is that? Well, I'm going to tell you. But essentially, a lot of you who are watching the show will know this, but when you are exercising, it will raise your blood pressure. Like that's the whole point of like putting your body under stress. It's and when it comes to blood pressure, it's chronic elevated blood pressure, which is the issue. But acute ups and downs is normal, especially if you're exercising. So what happened on that day? And it was crazy. Like literally, that massively affected um the next like 3 to 4 weeks of my trip when I was going to other places. And I didn't want to run in the mornings. Like I always get this anxiety. Um, and it wasn't actually until I was in Taiwan, and I bought myself a blood pressure monitor, and just I was just checking it all the time. But I was also like doing meditation, making sure I was in a cool environment. And then what I find was like my blood pressure is fine. It's just when I exercise it goes up. So yeah, so that's everything that happened this morning. And but it's scary like when something like that happens. And I did consult AI afterwards and talk about it and like what exactly is going on. And like they said like you hit the nail on the head exactly what happened there. It's totally normal. And when you are in a new environment, you're not used to training like this. Essentially, those your rest periods in between, you're in like a higher heart rate because normally when you sweat, the main reason for sweating is to actually it's not to necessarily to get rid of toxins, it's to cool the skin on your body, to cool your core body temperature down, because when you have moisture on it allows it to cool down. But when you're in a humid environment, that sweat can't evaporate. So that's why it becomes much more hard to thermoregulate, and you end up like that. So it is just an adaptation thing. And I was asking, is there anything protocols that I can do? And it was just like, you just need to train more in the heat and you will get better to it. But essentially, you are like 10 to 15% compromised versus your usual aerobic capacity when you are training in heat. So what's interesting about that is I'm thinking rather than I was going to check out some other gyms, but to be honest, I liked it there other than nearly feeling like I was dying. And I think it'd be nice to get that adaptation because when I come back in the summer and we have District L of a CrossFit competition, that would be nice to have that little bit of adaptation, especially if it's hot. So that should give me an advantage. So that's what I've done today. And yeah, it was a cool place. I love the doing the ice bath and stuff afterwards. So yeah, that was cool. Uh, So why am I here in Bali? Well, the three pillars of this trip is reflect, connect, create. Those are the three things which I'm building this whole entire trip around. So, and a lot of it is reflection based. The difference in being able to uh, be away from the, and it sounds like cliche, like the stresses of life. It's not even that. It's being outside of the emotional connection that you have to people, places, and things, and kind of places and things, like just being in the same environment all of the time. And they say that travel expands the mind because you're uh, seeing how other cultures do things. And that's how I've always thought about it. But I think the mind expansion piece is also relating to sort of neuroplasticity and you having to be out of your comfort zone and it just kind of allowing you to be much more creative with your thinking. And the good news is if you're watching this and you can't travel for any reason and you're wanting to gain the benefits, you can get a lot of the benefits just by changing your environment to anything different. For example, just before I came away, actually, I started uh, going to the local cafe in the morning to do my work, and I was much more creative. So I was already feeling some of those benefits. Obviously, when you take it to going on a plane for hours without Wi-Fi, and being on a different time zone, so people aren't messaging you all the time, like it just does take it up another level. So I'm not going to suggest that it's going to be exactly the same, but that is something that has been really interesting and just reminded me of how I used to think about things when I was traveling 9 years ago. I would The ideas that I would come up with would not only be more creative, but they would be more ambitious and just kind of a bit crazy and like, yeah, why couldn't I do that? I'll give you an example, right? And it's silly, but I remember just being like, it sounds really narcissistic as well. But I had this idea where I was like, what if I contacted all of the Jason Berries in the world on Facebook and organized like a big meetup and just all met up in some location and just like Jason Berry Fest or whatever? I mean, it's stupid, right? Never going to do that. But like, that's how you need bad and ridiculous ideas to be coming up with more creative ideas because it's creative. That idea is very creative. Is it a good one? No. But the more that you can being able to take that dial up of like mental ideas, like outside of the box thinking. And that's what exactly what it is, isn't it? It's outside of the box thinking. You're going to be able to problem solve better, etc. So um, there has been so many insights in which I've come over in just 3 days or something. Um, I think the biggest one so far since I've been here stemmed from a dinner I had with Jack Collins, is High Rocks coach and a friend of the show. He's been on the show before. And we were talking about content and podcasting and consuming podcasts and stuff, and how he was feeling really just worn out with it and doesn't listen to podcasts as much as he used to. And I was like, dude, I'm the same. Like I don't listen to anywhere near as many as I used to, or I'll start listening to them and I'll get like a bit bored and I'll change up. And I think a big part of it is there is like this learning ramp in certainly in the like fitness optimizer um self-help space that we're in. Um that once you learn a certain amount of stuff, it becomes more and more difficult to bring in more. Um, you don't need more strategies. You just need a method to stick with. And you may be thinking, well, Jason, you're a podcaster, you're part of this. And this is something that I've been really been stuck with recently, thinking about like, how do I make sure that I'm curious about the content that I'm creating or the guests that I'm interviewing so that I find it interesting and everyone else, finds it interesting. Some other podcasters who are way more professional, a lot of the big names, they go over topics that they've done over and over and over with different types of guests. And there's two things that could happen there. Number one, they're like asking questions that they know the answer to, what the best rep range is for strength. Uh, by the way, it's like 3 to 6. Um, and they know that question, right? But because this person is coming on as a strength person, they will ask it again and they're just going over the same stuff. Now, if the person then surprises them with a different number, then we have a different issue altogether. So now we have conflicting information that has been put out there on podcasts. I seen a video the other day talking about, I can't remember his name, but he would basically had analyzed all of the Diary of the CEO stuff. And because of so much conflicting information, is like maybe it's designed that way that it's like this pyramid scheme that only the person at the top of the podcast can benefit from. I don't think it's as sinister or as cut and dry as that necessarily. But yeah, if you're taking things of conflicting advice and trying to apply them, like that's crazy. Or, if you've just learned one thing and then it changes, it becomes difficult, especially if you don't have the theory of mind to be able to see that and stick with whatever that is that you were doing. And then the other problem is that then the more novel the concept or theory is, that gets pushed to the front of the algorithm because it will generate a headline such as like, oh, the thing you don't know about X, or the surprising thing about this. And the thing is that like that's not necessarily the case. And it's usually the old stuff that works time and time again. And I think we are going to see a bit of a shift in how things play out in terms of podcasting. It is that the conversations that I enjoy are the ones in which I connect, ones in which I've maybe offered something to the guest as a part of me. That's difficult because quite often we'll go over the same stuff. I've talked about this on the podcast before or whatever. Um, so that's always going to be a challenge. I need to kind of, so that people aren't hearing the same thing over and over again. But secondly, on the guests giving something to me and opening up about an experience that they've gone through. Because if we look at what's happening with AI, artificial intelligence, essentially what's happened is knowledge is now not valuable. It's literally, you can get a better response from AI. Like if you're wanting to know the best repetition ranges for strength again, actually I would recommend you go to listen to Andy Galpin on Human Lab, 6 4-hour episodes or something. But most people aren't going to do that, and they're just going to ask ChatGPT. or Claude or fill in your AI provider, and it's going to give you the answer. AI replaces knowledge, but it can never replace human experience and stories. Like that is the only thing, like that can never be replaced, right? You wouldn't ask an AI to give you a story about something that's someone that's gone through an experience which is totally made up or whatever. You might do. I mean, you get fictional stories or whatever, but even the fictional story usually has a meaning behind it that relates to the person who's wrote it. And how much do we love a true story? Like if you're on Netflix or whatever, and it's like a true story about this, they're just so much more compelling. Um, so yeah, so with that, I'm like, okay, so I want the connection between me and my guests. Um, AI can't replace stories. So I think this is the direction that I want to go down with the show. And I always remember speaking to Dr. Joey Liu, friend of the show, and I was trying to figure out like who is Jason? What's my show about? What's my like thing? And she was just like authenticity. And I've always been about, I'm like, yeah, but anyone can be authentic. I don't see because on or was it authenticity or vulnerability? Um, and then yeah, and then bringing this all together, it's kind of packaged up into this thing. And it doesn't mean that we can't do self improvement or I can't have high performers on, but I think it's high performers that have been through something, and it could be them going through a thing and coming out the other side could be why they're a high performer, right? So, I mean, one of my most popular episodes was Ellie Crabtree. Shout out to Ellie. Um, Lost her dad uh, at the age of like 15, 16. I'm just making that up. I'm not sure. She was a teenager and really tough. And she was overweight and eating emotional eating because of her dad and stuff. And then she like turned her life around and then started bodybuilding and like started coaching women on like fat loss and stuff. And like that's an amazing story, for this fairly young lass to have done that in a fairly short amount of time. And yeah, and it was popular because of that, because it's real stories and transformations. And we just love a good story, don't we? So that's the big thing that I'm getting in the moment. So reflection, um, connection is looking to uh, build connections for the podcast and sort of work in general, meeting other founders uh, to have on the show, to network with, to get inspiration with. Um, I'm looking for people to collaborate with. So that's the connection piece. Um, Great if also connected with a lady out here. Um, but yeah, so that's the second piece. Um, at the moment, that's been going fairly well, although most of it's been reflection, to be fair. Um, met a few people today. I was looking at different events to go to, like networking events yesterday. I've got someone who is going to come on the show uh, booked in on my calendar. And then I was like, I checked my calendar and I was like, I'm in Bali because I haven't updated it to my Bali hours, but she's in Bali. I'm like, I'm here in Bali. So we may do an in person one there. And yeah, there's a few other people that are going to be over here that I'm looking to connect with, and I will keep you informed on all that stuff. And then the third one, creation, create. Exactly what I'm doing now, but I'm looking to have uh, more conversations, do some recording out here, um, creating stuff with the agency, creating uh, notes, frameworks, etc. I'm loving my little moleskin notepad. That was a terrible way of showing it, but um, this has been great in terms of like simplicity. There's so many options that we have for note taking, etc. And it's been nice just to be like, just to have this little bit and think because it's small, I kind of value it a little bit more in terms of just taking care when I'm writing. I'm like, oh, there's just a little page here. And even cause I don't have that much room, I'm not starting new days on different pages. I kind of like that it's just full of text. Um, I'm starting days like halfway down a page. And then I've come up with just like a little process that I've been doing where it's like stream of consciousness, SOC, in terms of like, oh, yeah, this is what I'm thinking today, just whatever, kind of starting off the day. I might be sat in a cafe. Um, and then what I've been doing is like adding little keys. So I'll let's say I mentioned something about breakfast, and then I'll draw a little camera symbol, and then I don't know if you can hear that. They're having like this crazy sermon next door. They have like calls to prayer here, um, and it's really loud at times. But tonight they are doing like this. They're like cheering. It sounds like a rock concert at times, just absolutely buzzing for religion. But I'll probably clear up the background noise so you won't hear it anyways. Um, but yeah, little camera symbol. But then because I've got everything backed up on my phone, and I'll take a picture of whatever it is. And then what I can do is, if I look back on these notes in the future, I'll be like, oh, I'm reading a little journal entry. And I'm like, oh, I can look up the date, look into my Google Photos, and then see the image that is attached to the note. So that's pretty cool and something that we've never really had before. And then just things like, uh, I'm kind of just doing it as I go through my day. So I will put like an asterisk as like an action. So if I put anything in asterisks, and then I'll be like, did this thing. So it could be like, spent 30 minutes talking to Claude AI about this thing, and then I'll come back to the notes thing, and then I'll maybe say, on this is what I discussed. So I've got a little bit going on with AI as well. Um, cool little tip, by the way. If you are using Claude, is fucking amazing. You want to be using that now, um, and just pay for it. It's worth it. If you, it has access. If you have memory turned on, it has all of your memory and context and stuff. And I'm just absolutely loving it at the moment. It's just so good at just pulling from bits. It's like, oh, you mentioned this thing the other week. If you are worried about privacy, you just turn off the send. Was it help improve Claude in settings? Turn that off, and then your data won't be sent to train the models. So I just turn that off by default, and then you can. I feel more comfortable talking about anything. I've got it into my Google Calendar now, which I was a little bit nervous about because it can delete and edit stuff. And here's a good example: like I'll be like, delete this thing, and it's like, oh, I can't do that now, or like it just makes it really difficult. So that's cool. Going back to the notes, so I do an asterisk for an action, and then if I think of a task that I've got to do, I just write tasks, like, and underline it, and then I write some tasks, and then I carry on with whatever I was doing, or I might go off and do that thing. But I just get this really contextual diary entry about what I've done that day. It becomes like just like a log. And to be honest, I've kind of learned that from watching how AI works because when you click into, if you ask it a thing, it'll tell you what it's doing behind there. It's like, oh, thinking about this, I'm wondering about this, this, and this. And then it goes, search for this file or whatever. So it's got this continuous log. So that's what I'm doing with my journal. is kind of just recording just like the key bits in my day and kind of working through it. So that's cool. Whether I'll be able to keep up with it and it's like a much more busy environment, office environment or anything like that, it remains to be said. But for now, this is working really well. So yeah, a bit of a catch up, a little bit of a ramble all over the place, but I hope you appreciate that I'm still putting stuff out at the moment. And yeah, I've got tomorrow is I've got a day with the agency, so that'll be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, it's I'm excited for stuff, and I encourage you, if you can do, to try and change up your environment, go outside, go to somewhere different, even if it's for a few days or a week. See if you can negotiate some remote time with your work. And life's too short, if you are wondering, and just think you could be getting sunburnt like me. Uh, so yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful week. And drop me a message. I'll always reply. Look forward to seeing you in the next one.